Welcome back to another Photoshop tutorial for beginners. In this video, we're going to learn how to do 3 different types of outlines that glow. Before you do any outline, the first thing you have to do is make a selection. So in our case, we're actually going to go Control J and duplicate our layer first. And then we're going to use the quick selection tool, the 4th one down here, right click if you don't see it, quick selection tool, to make our selection. But we're going to use this button up here to do the work for us. So select subject. When you click that, Photoshop will do a very good job of making a selection for you. But you might have to kind of zoom in and make sure that the selection is the way you want it. So I can see right here, there's going to be a chunk that's missing. So I'm going to make sure that I'm on the plus one up here, not on the minus one, and just kind of paint in that section so that it adds it to my selection. I'm going to keep scrolling down here. This side looks all good. Over here, there's another chunk right there. So I'd paint over that and add it in. If by chance there was a selection like this that was protruding out that you didn't want, then you use the minus and paint that away so it's not part of your selection anymore. Then the next thing you're going to do is head down here and add a mask to your layer. Now if we click the eyeball to the background, you can see that the background is gone and all we have left is the stormtrooper, which would be the white selection part here on the mask. At this point, if you still need to clean up your selection somewhere, then just click on your mask, go to your brush tool, and use a black brush to erase bits that you do not need anymore, and flip to a white brush for anything that you need to bring back. My recommendation would be to use whatever size brush makes sense. So if you need to get into this kind of small area here, then lower your brush size, and hardness should be around 70 to 80, somewhere in there. Next, hold Control and click on the mask, which will select everything we had selected before. Go over and select the pen tool, change it from shape to path, and then go back to the quick selection tool so we can right click within our selection and select Make Work Path. Tolerance of 5 is perfectly good. Click OK. Then go back and select the pen tool, and up top here, when it's on path right here, go over and click Shape right there. And you might be able to see it. There's a little red like dotted line that's appeared now in mine. Yours might look completely different. And then change path back to shape, and you're going to have your selections that you can make here. Now we can see that dotted red line. The first thing you want to make sure is that your fill is nothing, like this. It's selected on this one, so there is no fill. If you had a fill, it would look like that, so you don't want that because it's just an outline. Next is stroke, and this is the color that you want to use. For what we're doing, just select white every single time. Then the next one is the size. So if you want bigger dashes or a thicker line or whatever, then slide this along. And then the next one here, sort of the last one that we're going to deal with up here, is whether you want a solid line, the dashed line, or a dotted line. So for the first one, we're going to actually just do a solid line. So then we just have to go back to our size here and decide how thick we want the line. And you can see as I crank this up, the outline is going towards the middle, which we don't want. So let's go back over to this one over here. And when you're on a solid line, when you want a solid line, the only option down here that matters is a line. And we can change it from to the middle right here. This is to the center, and this is to the outside. And that's the one we want for our solid line. Now we can go back to the size and really pick the thickness of the line that we want. Next, we're going to go over to our shape layer over here, right click, go up to blending options, and select outer glow. So the only decisions you have to make are what color you're going to use. Make sure your technique is on softer, and then just play around with spread and size until you get something that you like. My suggestion is to not have spread too high though. Click OK, and your outer glow outline is ready to go. The second type of outline that we're going to look at is one that is dashed, but is also separated from your subject. So I've already made my selection here, so the only thing I have to do is hold Control, click on my mask, and this time, instead of going right over and making the path, I'm going to go up to Select, modify, and expand. Your number that makes sense here might be different than mine, but I'm going to try 100 so that I have a reasonable separation from my subject. Yours might be different depending on the size of your image and other factors. And then let's just follow the same steps as last time. So go to our pen tool, head up here, switch it to path, go back to the quick selection tool, right click within our selection, select make work path, tolerance of 5 is okay. Then go back to our pen tool, make sure you click on shape right here, and then switch this to shape, and you have your options back again. And you can see that we have the dotted line. So make sure your fill is gone again. Change stroke, remember, just to white for now is good. And then we're gonna play around with these numbers. So I'm gonna make this a little bit bigger this time to about there. But unlike the solid line where a line was the only thing that mattered, for a dash or these dots, all this other stuff comes into play as well. So I still like to switch this to the outside one. I think that looks better. Or in this case, maybe center, that looks good too. For the other options, I'm gonna punch in so we can see them up close. So let's switch caps to this second one, and you can see that it rounds the edges of each of the dashes. And if you select this one, it puts them back to square, but you can see that it's much closer to each other now. So it just kind of extends them to be closer. As for corners, I don't really actually know what they do, so I can't advise you on that. In more options though, that's where we can adjust a few more things. So for dash here, if I lower the dash down to 1, let's say, it makes each dash shorter. If I change dash to be a higher number, then each dash becomes longer. As for gap, it's pretty obvious. The lower you go, the closer each dash gets to each other. The higher you go, the further the dashes are away from each other. As for everything else, don't worry about it, just click OK. Now all we have to do is head over to our shape layer again, right click, go up to blending options, and select outer glow. Now your settings will need to be adjusted again. So for C3PO, I'm going to switch to a more yellow glow, and I'm going to bring this down because these are much smaller. But when I do that, you can see that the edges of the dash are now kind of protruding. So we can fix that in one of two ways. If you know you're putting the glow around, then maybe we should go back, click on our shape, and switch our caps here to rounded, and that will fix that a little bit. If you don't like that, I'm just going to put it back just for the sake of what we're doing. Oh, I had it on this one. Then what you can also do is just bump up the spread a little bit, and it will kind of cover that space. But when you do that, it kind of makes it look like the rounded edges anyway. For our third outline, I'm going to use BB8. For this one, I'm going to use the dots this time. And then just like the other two times, we right click, go up to blending options, select outer glow. And if you like that, then just go with the dots like that. If you want the kind of glowing spread out look that I had before, then switch technique to precise. And we are going to turn this up a little bit and then start turning up the size. And that will create that kind of spreading out glow effect that I had in the thumbnail. And then again, select whatever color you want that glow to be. And you have a third example of a glowing outline. And just so you know, for some of these, you do get a different look when you place the shape below your subject. So in this case, I have the outer glow shape 2 below BB8, and it looks like this. If I drag it above BB8 or the subject, then I'll get a slightly different look around the edge of my subject. So that's how you make a few different glowing outlines in Photoshop. If you like that tutorial, make sure you like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.